Are you familiar with FBI Special Agents Kyle Sarapin?
I'm familiar with the name.
Is that yes?
I'm familiar with the name. Familiar with the name. Familiar with the name.
Let's bring in Kyle Sarapin. He's the FBI whistleblower who helped expose government censorship of our First Amendment rights.
Now, we only have this memo because a recently suspended FBI agent called Kyle Sarapin brought it to the public, and we're grateful that he did. Kyle, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
He's the host of something that strangely is called the Kyle Sarapin Show.
Kyle Sarapin, I can't thank you enough for speaking out. I knew you guys were out there, and I knew it was just a matter of time, but you got a lot of guts putting your face and your name to this. You're doing a service on behalf of the American people, and from the bottom of my cracked and broken heart sometimes, thank you very much.
Take a look behind the curtain with a real whistleblower and American patriot. Prepare to embrace the uncomfortable truth because this program has no time for comforting lies. Here is civil liberties enthusiast, Second Amendment defender, and recovering FBI agent Kyle Sarapin.
Well, hello, my friends. Welcome to the Kyle Sarapin Show. Today's Friday, and it is August the 16th. Good morning to you that are joining us live, and good afternoon to you that are driving home in Friday traffic. I hope you guys have a great weekend planned in front of you. We're going to have a fun show today. We got my buddy Steve Friend coming on in just one moment, so we'll get into that. Let's talk about where we're going to go with the show, because it is kind of a grab bag. It's been a strange and stupid week. I'm just going to call it the way that I see it. We've got Secret Service agents breastfeeding on the job. That's scary. I've got a long clip today that I'm going to play you of Donald Trump talking about God's purpose for him and sort of the awakening that he had as the bullets were whipping over his head. He meanders, but I'm going to give him all the time that it takes to be able to say it because I think it's an important message. We're going to talk about the press conference. This should be called like press conference gate. Why is there no Kamala Harris press conference? We're going to get into that. CNN holding accountable. Very fun. Interesting. A couple of things. The HotDish Dynasty. The man just can't get away with saying the truth. He just has a hard time with it, it seems. And so we're going to cover a little more Tim Walz. We're going to do the Sergeant Major kind of controversy. It's just more and more. Like, I didn't realize how bad his lies were, but it is a bad lie if you say things that are false about your military service. Before we get into any of that, let's go ahead and say thanks to one of our sponsors that's keeping our program on the air. And as you guys probably know, I always tell people that I am a husband and father first. I'm an American second. And I was an FBI agent, or now a podcaster, a distant third. It's just a job. So let me just tell you this. If you come after me, you come after the family, I will be ready because those are the things that I put in my priorities in that order. That's why we rely on My Patriot Supply. You guys can go to preparelikekyle.com. Right now, the mega 3-month emergency food kit, which has 33 varieties of various different types of pre-made foods, it's on sale. And you guys are going to be able to get that with zero shipping. It includes chicken-flavored rice, old-fashioned spaghetti, savory broccoli cheese. I'm not a broccoli guy, but my wife is for some reason. You're going to get the bonus protein pack. It's going to have diced beef, flavorful chicken chunks, and a variety of beans. There's 9 different fruits, vegetables, and snacks. All of this in a kit that's going to give you 2,500 calories per day. That's quite a bit more than most of these things, so it's going to be a little bit more expensive. It's going to be worth it if you want that, and you can stretch it further. I see it as a duty as an American, as a father. It's important not to rely on handouts and be able to insulate your own family. You guys can depend on this food lasting for up to 25 years in your cabinet. In case you need it, go to preparelikekyle.com. Save yourself $300 on what's called the Mega 3-Month Emergency Food Kit. Again, preparelikekyle.com. preparelikekyle.com. Save $300. Get free shipping. That's really the big thing for me. I hate paying for shipping. Like, just tell me what the cost is up front, right? Are you guys the same way? What about this guy, Steve Friend? Steve, do you like paying for shipping? Is that a thing for you?
I don't, which is why I think Joe Biden should take that up. They should be shipping costs should be addressed at the federal level. I'm all in on that. The shipping cost clause must be part of the good and plenty clause of the Constitution.
They focus on the dumbest things. I need to get lead out of pipes, apparently. And we want to make sure that we get rid of the junk fees and the resort fees. And it should be easier to cancel your subscriptions online. And then, free shipping should be part of all. Just build into the cost. Don't tell me what the shipping costs. I don't want to know. I don't want to feel like I'm paying for shipping.
Can you just see like George Washington working late into the night, thinking things through? Like, we need to stop these junk fees. Like, we have the joke of a government.
He's doing it by candlelight, right? He's got a candle, or he's got like a gas lamp that he's burning like slowly, and he's got a quill.
And he's like,
yes. And he was like, the last time that I went and took my whiskeys to market and had to buy grain on credit, and they junk feed me. And he's pissed. I don't know how he probably talked like a British person, right?
He was a proud patriot. Yeah, I think he wanted to be in the British Navy. So why not?
I went after, not went after, but I just really dislike drag in general. I think normalizing drag in public is really weird and I don't want it. And so like, it's not conservative. And you can be a Republican and do all kinds of weird stuff because Republican is a political affiliation, but conservative is an ideology. So I just don't like it. And somebody was like, they're like, but the founding fathers wore powdered wigs and tights. And I'm like, that's how dudes dressed. If they dressed like women of the day, then they would have been tarred and feathered back in the day. They would have put them on a rail and run them out of town because that was weird stuff. You didn't do that.
I mean, William Wallace would have probably owned a whole bunch of people that are purporting to be really based Republicans at this point, the guys that are ready for the Civil War. I don't think you would deal with him, and he wore a kilt.
He wore a kilt, which is essentially a skirt.
And I don't know if he had the 3-inch hemline that they require at Catholic schools either.
That's
Might have been skies out,
check.
thighs out up in Scotland.
Skies out, thighs out. There's not a lot of great weather for that. The shrinkage and the cold humidity is probably a problem, but you know, it didn't stop them.
Look, I just this needs to be said. I'm feeling a little bit somber, lugubrious, SAT word, my dad's favorite. We are now halfway past the best month of the year, August, where it's hot all the time.
This makes me feel like you saw the episode yesterday where I said it is my least favorite month, and it is my least favorite month. The colors get bleached out of my eyeballs when I walk outside. The world is uglier, Steve, in August and also in July. How dare you?
When you're an iguana, it is always room temperature.
That's so weird. Okay, let's do some fun videos. Let's see. First of all, let's do a real story. Okay, I've got a real story. I'm going to put you on the screen up here. The Social Security system, the databases have been hacked by a data broker, apparently, where there was a data broker that had access to it and they were hacked. Let me try to read this story out here because as I was parsing it out, the only thing I kept thinking about was the smurfing of political donations. Did you hear about that the other day?
Yes.
Okay.
Act Blue.
So there's a class action lawsuit. It's brought against an alleged hack of a data broker. The data set that contains all the personal information, all of the Social Security numbers is the claim of all U.S. citizens. This is like an OPM level hack, and I don't see this being the front of every single page. It should tell people how ineffective our government is. They couldn't keep my information and your information out of the Chinese who hacked the Office of Personnel Management and got all of our like SF-86s, right? You want to explain to people how nutty that was when that happened? Because you were active and I was just coming in when it did.
Well, when it happened and they got all of the SF-86, which is basically your 200-page document, gives all of your prior work history and residences and everything about you, all your contacts, all your personal information, which could render you somebody that they could then recruit for counterintelligence means. That was all acquired by the Chinese government, and the FBI gave us LifeLock subscriptions for a year and said, "Our bad, guys."
I felt like it was a way that somebody at LifeLock got like paid off by getting the FBI to buy all of it. Is that probably the most likely?
I think that somebody probably got a retirement gig at LifeLock.
Right. Yeah, that's what I mean. And then like that was the payout. And then like suddenly they got like whatever, salesperson of the year because you sold 38,000 subscriptions to the federal government at whatever the maximum cost with no discount was.
And you just then apply that to all Social Security numbers ever. I think the numbers was even more than the current population in the country. So I think it's like every number that's ever existed, which should be interesting, particularly when you have so many of these municipalities or areas where there seems to be more people voting than are registered to vote.
Mm-hmm.
And makes me think that maybe there's something criminal and nefarious afoot as it pertains to handing over that private information. But they can have mine. Look, if you want to take over my identity and have the background of being having your security clearance revoked the day before you testify in front of Congress, which would permanently ruin your ability to earn going forward, have at it.
Have at. Agreed. Okay, so here it is. The lawsuit's filed against a national data broker that's called National Public Data. It's part of a shadowy collections of businesses. This is NBC News reporting this. They don't like it either. That quietly collect, buy, trade, and sell your personal information, usually without your knowledge. This goes in line with what we talked about yesterday with GM essentially selling off your driving data, your geolocation, and so on and so forth, your speeds, the amount of braking, and the times that you are driving, so that basically the folks who are trying to sell you things know more about you than you even remember. Because I bet you don't remember how many times you've driven after, let's say, 7:30 p.m. I don't know. I just don't. I don't think it's very common because I'm usually at home and I want to go to bed. But this is the thing. Like if they know that about you, they can basically bill you based on your actual habits, not based on what the market would say about you. And so they're individually able to customize pricing. Or they could just make political donations to the tune of like $33,000, $35,000, $50,000 when you have no money and go ahead and give it to Kamala Harris. That's a real thing.
They should do it in like $8 increments multiple times a day over a year and a half from one house.
Yeah, that's right.
I think that will definitely create the impression of a grassroots movement behind the most popular candidate who's ever run for office, even though the candidate was the least popular vice president in the history of measuring vice president popularity 4 weeks ago before the coup.
I think it's because Biden is so extraordinary. That's why he got. I saw something on MSNBC today, and they were talking about it again. He got 7 million more votes. They showed look how popular he is. It was Chris Hayes talking about it. And Kamala knows too how great he is. There's a lot of love for Joe. Here's the most awkward introduction by one of the most cringeworthy human beings, folks. It's Friday. We're gonna have fun with it, but we are gonna play you some things that are gonna make you wish that you had a bout of diarrhea and left the phone behind and you couldn't hear us. Here we go. I don't know why I said that, but here we go.
Joe Biden. And he's going to speak in a minute, but there's a lot of love in this room for our president.
That's drunk happy Kamala. That's like when you're they did the 3 stages of like drunk mom Kamala.
Yes.
That's when everything is so exceptional. It's like, I just love you so much. Everything about you is great. It's so weird to see her face like pulled back in this aggressive smile. I wonder how much work she's had done now that I think about it.
She does that Katie Britt response to the State of the Union thing where they just told her to smile all the time and she looks psychotic. Just keep smiling, Kamala. Keep smiling because you're full of joy. You're very joyful. She's
bringing a lot of joy, allegedly, to the country.
But she's leaning heavily on extraordinary. That's the new unburdened by.
No, it's any word that she touches that just gets it gets thrown into the repeat hopper. It's like dropping a frog into your blender. You're going to see the same part of the frog spin past you like 10 times before it gets totally blended up. So she's like, it's like left leg, and it just keeps spinning and you're like, oh, that's awkward. It's not cutting that frog up. Let me play.
She started that Magneto path and she threw extraordinary out there and then she nodded along and you could just see the mechanics going on between her ears being like, well, nothing else is coming here. The bridge isn't formulating. What do I do?
It's the same as the meme.
Smiling.
You're riding the bicycle, right? And then you stick the stick into your own bicycle spoke and then you fall over and it's like Kamala Harris off to a good start and like extraordinary, and then she falls over. Okay, this is how Joe Biden took that intro and ran with it. This is just a little piece of it. I kind of miss him because I really liked it better when I didn't have to do cringing Kamala. Biden falling apart, human Roomba, is far more interesting. Have a little taste of this. This is awkward and weird.
Legislation led by Senator Frank Church that let Medicare negotiate the cost of drugs.
So the Frank Church is known for the Church Committee, which was going after the CIA and the FBI and weaponized government. And whenever he loses track, he just throws out Medicare, right? Because we finally beat Medicare. I'm waiting on Kamala to come in. Yeah, you beat it to death, Joe. I'll fix it day one.
It's incredible. I want to show the real legacy, and this is a semi-serious thing. This is the actual legacy. I didn't see this on the front page of any of the leftist news media. I can tell you why. You can tell me why. This is the Biden legacy. If you've never seen this, this is going to blow your mind. If you are listening, you actually need to see this. This is the legacy in Afghanistan. We are now in August, so that is 3 years from August 2021 during the disastrous pullout, the failed sort of attempt to regulate people at Abbey Gate, where we lost 13 service members. My folks have a memorial in their front yard about this so that people do not forget when they walk around the neighborhood in the morning. And this should make Americans, this should be front and center. Donald Trump could just play this. It's like, here's what you get to the Taliban. Look at this equipment, folks. And again, if you're listening, you're about to see all of the United States military hardware being paraded by a tyrannical dictatorship. It's like fake religious. It's nuts.
دا د امریکایي اشغال د هیواد د ازادۍ او فتحې په دې مراسمو کې د اسلامي امارت هوایي ځواکونه هم پوځي نمایشات ترسره کوي او د زمینی ځواکونو ملاتړ کوي. هوایي ځواکونه په اوسني عصر کې د یو هیواد د دفاع له اساسي عناصرو ګڼل کېږي. اسلامي امارت د هوایي ځواک تقویې، ترمیم او پراختیا ته کلک تعهد لري او په تېرو 3 کلونو کې یې ګڼ شمېر څرخکې او الوتکې ترمیم او د پرواز وړ ګرځولې دي.
It's an endless stream of American military vehicles and AMRAPs and APCs and like just an incredible array of capabilities. And they're parading it out like every single tin pot dictator always did. Like, look how big our sword is. We have this thing. And we gave it to them. We paid for it.
And I saw that there was the post about the Iraqi parliament that was lowering the age for girls to be married to age 9. I'm just like, hey, thanks for your service, guys. This is just shows the complete failure that it was. And I mean, I use the comparison of the outcome people and the process people and the people who pretend to be process people who are outcome people. And this is that. This is what 9/11 did. It got people like Garrett O'Boyle to join the army and go overseas and fight and die and lose limbs, and then get the American people to accept the Patriot Act and the increasing government that we now deal with. It's just expanded out of control because we were patriots and we just had to do it. Otherwise, the terrorists would win. Meanwhile, all we did was make Lockheed Martin and Boeing really rich, get politicians reelected to office because they could just drape themselves in the American flag. And I mean, and then you contrast that with, for a second, when I saw that, until I heard the voiceover, I thought it might be Tim Walz's Minneapolis as they were parading through the streets there, firing on citizens. We can't talk about that though. We're just gonna say that this is just the natural outgrowth. We'd done our time there, and we're just gonna leave with dignity. This was a completely successful withdrawal. Don't consider the fact that we had 13 service members blown up and hundreds of thousands of refugees brought in unvetted to the country, and we left women and children there in the most vulnerable position that they've been in, because if they're young enough, they never lived through what they are now going to live through, which predates September 11th. They're back in the 7th century. So well done, everyone from the American government.
It's 100% true. I signed up after the surge because I was like, oh, I get it. Like, I need to go do something with my life. And so I know our chat moderator, Eric Jason, said the same thing. It's like, that's what happened to me. That's what happened to a lot of men. They were like, how do I serve? Domestically or overseas? What is it going to take? I'm going to go sign up. I mean, I had a college degree and I was 27 years old when I enlisted because there was a thing, that naive patriotism that kind of gets you. Let's just do a little super clip here of Tim Walz. Nobody cares that you served 24 years. We don't have a problem with you doing 24 years in the National Guard. Plenty of people have. Plenty of people have served without deploying, and I'm one of them. It doesn't make me any sad. I wanted to deploy. That was like a regret that I had. Here's a man talking about a rank that he didn't get to hold on to. He's claiming to be a retired command sergeant major. I didn't realize how many times he said it. Yes, we've covered it on the show. Yes, you've seen it all over social media. I didn't know how prominent it was for him to make that claim. It'd be the equivalent for us, Steve, of somebody claiming to be an FBI supervisor when they were an acting supervisor for a couple of weeks. This is the amount of dishonesty. And that is really, really dishonest. To claim that you were an acting supervisor or that you worked in that role, it'd be the same as me trying to say that I was a staff sergeant because I did the job of a staff sergeant and I did it for 6 months, which I did. And I got a commendation, actually. It was in writing that said that I performed above rank. But my rank was E3. That's what it said. That's what I got paid for. If I went in and did the job of a staff sergeant, it's because they didn't have good staff sergeants. This guy said it a lot, and I didn't realize how many it is. I'm going to play, I don't know, a couple seconds of this thing. We'll turn it off when we get bored. It's over and over again. Here's Tim Walz talking about his service dishonestly.
Tell him I'm a school teacher. I'm a retired sergeant major.
As a 24-year veteran of the Army National Guard and a retired command sergeant major.
As a retired sergeant major in the Army National Guard out of Minnesota.
Retired out as command sergeant major.
I spent 24 years in the military, Congressman, as a command sergeant major.
Tim Walz is one of those everyday people. Coach to the state champs. Teacher of the year. Command sergeant major.
I am a retired command sergeant major in the Minnesota National Guard.
I am a retired sergeant major in the Army National Guard.
What I consider to be the responsibility and the privilege of being the highest ranking enlisted personnel ever to serve in Congress. And I'm the Democrats.
What rank was that?
Command sergeant major.
So when you first came to Washington, you were a retired command sergeant major in the Army National Guard. So
I was an enlisted soldier for all those years, and care of troops and making sure they have the right equipment is paramount. So.
17, served 24 years, including in Operation Enduring Freedom, retired as a command sergeant major, which makes him the highest ranking enlisted soldier to ever serve in the United States.
Let's just cut it right there. There's 2.5 to 3 more minutes of those short cuts of him saying the same thing over the last 15 years.
And it's not even just the retired command sergeant major, which he didn't retire as, and that's just a lie. We don't have to say he misspoke. It was an obfuscation. He's a liar, and he's lied about other things as well. And he uses that as a leverage point or to pull on people's heartstrings to give an appeal to authority that he's supposed to have. And I don't even like it when people legitimately have served and are not doing stolen valor. It rubs me the wrong way. Like, I respect immensely John McCain's sacrifice that he had in the Hanoi Hilton. I mean, just unbelievable. But I'm allowed to say that he's a crappy senator. And
a bad person.
Somebody
from
like
what we can
Alan
tell.
West or Tulsi Gabbard leads off the response to every question with, well, in my time in the military. The question was about healthcare. So can we stay on topic here? And he leads on that with a crutch, and he doesn't even have the bona fides that those other people who I've talked about did. I mean, from my understanding, the guy deployed and it actually insinuated that he has PTSD from going to Italy. Okay. Did you get like a cold pasta dish? Like what was the cause of that?
I think it was gypsies. Hey, gypsies are a thing. You gotta be careful. I once kneeled on the neck of like a 50 or 60-year-old woman who tried to pick my pocket, and she got herself into like a turnabout where I had took her down to the ground because she went into the pocket and I caught her wrist.
You're
I have
lucky
PTSD
that there
from
wasn't riots as a result of that.
This was back,
dude.
We were back. That was a proper world back then. That was like 01, 02 or something like that. But yeah, I straight up like caught a wrist of a gypsy lady who was trying to hand me a flower. She was like, here's a flower while my finger goes into your pockets. And I was like, gotcha. And I instinctively dropped her to the ground, put her into basically like a kneeling position where I could have cuffed her. I don't remember what I was taking some sort of martial arts at the time in the school I was at. And I just took her down. And I'm like, this never happens. And I looked around and I'm like, oh, now I've got like an old lady by the arm with her face in the
standards,
dirt.
they would have signed you up for the Olympics, right?
Dude, nobody cared about that. Like back in the day, people were like, yeah, like they didn't like gypsies are a problem. Like nobody wants the gypsies pick in your pocket. So that was fine. Meanwhile, yes, like that's the PTSD that I carry around. I look out for old, like when people try to hand me flowers, I'm thinking about giving you like a falling arm bar, something like that. Anyway, let's do another fun lie because it's just weird. You're like, okay, fine. He lies about his military service. It's kind of compulsive. And it's performative. And that's really the thing that I think is so gross about it. That's why people know that it's cringeworthy and it makes them sick. This is a scripted conversation they did, they being Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. And if you haven't seen this yet, just deal with it because it's a thing that they do. They set up a camera crew and then they pretend that they're just sitting around like a card table in somebody's basement solving the problems that they created. He's a freaking governor who did a terrible job and let his state get overrun. And she's the vice president of the United States. She believes she's the only person that's ever grown peppers, chili peppers. That's a hot take. It's a weird hot take, too. Let's get a little taste of this. There's 2 pieces of it, and then we're going to debunk it because we can, and why not?
Like I have white guy tacos and
what is
like
that?
black,
like mayonnaise and tuna? What are you doing?
pretty much ground beef and cheese.
That's
and,
okay. Do you put any flavor in it?
No.
Oh.
Here's the deal. No, they said to be careful and let her know this, that black pepper is the top of the spice level in Minnesota, you know.
I'm the first vice president, I believe, who has ever grown chili peppers.
I'm trying to expand my food knowledge.
You know what? We've got some cantaloupes. You'll be fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got some cantaloupes. Cantaloupes are the substitute for peppers. Thomas Jefferson grew chili peppers at Monticello.
Weren't there plantation owners who were at one point in high office? I mean, that seems like historically accurate, not to quibble with vice president currently. I mean, and not for nothing, that seems like tremendously racist statements to make about white people's preferences for generally for tacos. And then you basically insult your entire state and say that their palates can only deal with black pepper.
Apparently they don't remember that they have like Somalis and stuff there too. Like that's the top of the food chain is pepper. It's like the I'm gonna do a caricature of white people to try to make black people like me because I'm a gross, filthy person. Anyway, so we've got this little thing on here. This was a fact check that was online. Thomas Jefferson grew chili peppers at Monticello. And he was also apparently an adventurous gardener. He was interested in bird peppers and Mexican peppers and chili peppers and other peppers. And screw you, Kamala. You're a freak. You're a joke. And also, there's a hot dish dynasty we got to talk about, Steve. There it is. Apparently, Tim Walz, he's only into like white guy tacos. And yes, turkey is pretty gross. I actually do agree with that theory.
Disavow.
But he's won multiple like doofus cooking competitions. It's
If they want to make him relatable, they should have played that up. Like, hey, he's just a regular guy. He's
just a regular guy who does like crappy turkey taco hot dishes. And so there's his plaque because he won them when he was in Minnesota. That's like the hot dish championship. And then here's his recipe that he uses. These are all things that were available in 2016. This was a Fox News story. They have a cook-off, apparently. Apparently, when you're in Congress, it's also like being in the FBI where they have like a chili cook-off that 3 people participated in, and Tim Walz is one of the losers that did. So there you have it. There's his turkey taco hot dish. I don't even know where the term hot dish, that must be like a northern Midwestern thing because it's very weird. But here it is. Chili powder, paprika, none of which are pepper. I mean, they are peppers. But like, what the hell's wrong with this guy? Why mild green chili peppers are also in there. This is his recipe that he published for his hot dish dynasty. I'm going to read you something from the thing. Go ahead and respond, and I'll read you the little piece that he said about it.
This just seems dumb to me as far as if you're going to go with the message of I'm just a lame white guy and I'm super relatable to you, why wouldn't he just feign like outrage with Kamala? She's like, so what do you like? He's like, I'll have you know, I want a competition. Like that conversation writes itself, and they couldn't even zero in on that possibility here.
Who's the writer of this? Listen to this. Quote, a hot dish dynasty, I didn't make that up, is born, said Representative Tim Walz after winning his 3rd hot dish championship. In all seriousness, though, I do congratulate Representative McCollum on her delicious runner-up dish and thank Senator Franken again for putting together this friendly competition. It's a great way for us to come together and celebrate our heritage. The heritage of hot dishes.
This is the congressional baseball game.
It is.
Like, there's a couple members that take it really serious and they train for it for a really long time. Like, he probably spent an inordinate amount of time on this. And this was very important to him to have this ridiculous plaque. We are led by the least capable people in this country. It's embarrassing.
Just absolute doofuses. And then they want to script this out. So this is how they're going to help people. I got a really good follow-up to this. So in the same competition or the same sort of scripted conversation of hot dishes, here it is where they're going to help people out. They're going to solve your problems. You know the problems that they've been creating for the last couple of years? Yeah, here we go.
We got to help people get through a hard time. We can't have a country and policies that let people fall through the cracks.
Yeah.
Oh, we can't? Whose policies are those?
Is that the extraordinary president? The word country. We can't have a country. Is she consistently like Nancy Pelosi level drunk?
I think that
is that seriously a possibility? She's just
I think Malice is correct. I think that she may have a serious anxiety disorder. That when I was on Timcast, they were talking about that, but I don't think she has a tic. I think that she's just drunk and maybe she's on like benzos, maybe she's on like Klonopin or something.
Taking Quaaludes.
She comes off like somebody that hangs out with Bill Cosby, but he didn't get the dose right. So she's just like sort of like lukewarm and slurred it through and says the thing. Here's the best answer to that, by the way, because I do think Republicans can come back at this stuff. One of the biggest pieces that I've continued, and it's on my little sheet of paper of Democrat talking points, is that abortion is really important. I want to see this guy. And by the way, I showed it to my wife the other day. I don't know if you see the best single response to Kamala Harris and the whole black controversy that was going on that Donald Trump had. He needs to have Kevin Sorbo come on and say it. Did you hear him say what Kevin Sorbo said?
No.
He just said,
it's Hercules, so I like it.
He said, tell Kamala Harris to come out and say the N-word and let black people decide if she's black. Like, how hard?
All right, so we've been plotting some of the best trolls this week. It needs to be said. So I proffered amongst our group and including to Kash Patel that during the DNC next week that Donald Trump and Elon Musk should do a legit mystery science theater during Kamala Harris's acceptance speech, complete with like the empty theater and the silhouettes that are just commenting on her, because the whole we're gonna play this game where you guys have your week and we have our week and we don't interfere with it. No, that's out the window now. And I think that would be the most epic political troll of all time. It's just him and Elon ripping on her speak, which will be unscripted, but I'm sure we will get a fair amount of cackles and leaning on phrases like unburdened by what has been and the significance of time and extraordinary president.
I've got some more of those for you too, but let me first just like do a real serious dismantling. How about this go front and center? Because this is a real message. You can't tell me that you want to worry about women and you love black people and that's why you can make fun of white people tacos and then also be like wholesale murdering black babies. How about this?
The Democrat Party today that's pushing infanticide and killing babies at abortion clinics, and by and large, that impacts the black community the most. While at the same time, they tell blacks, vote for us because we love you the most. These lies are intentional to keep blacks on the liberal plantation. White Republicans have done more to save black babies at abortion clinics than the NAACP, than the National Congressional Black Caucus, and Black Lives Matter combined. Any candidate that wants to kill your posterity doesn't love you. They hate you. The Democrat.
It's really, really easy. That's an easy segue to my friends over at Catholic Vote. If you guys want to find more good content that's pro-life, that is going to call out truth as they see it and is interested in faith and family and freedom, the freedom to be born, go to my friends over at Catholic Vote. Go to catholicvote.org. You guys can sign up for the loop. You'll get a good sort of taste of more serious news if that's what you're interested on a Friday. That's a good time because we tend to cut it up a little bit. And then also you can follow them on social media at Catholic Vote, wherever you guys are at. They're on YouTube. They have a Catholic Vote channel, which we post some content to and I'm part of. But also you can find them on Rumble. You can find them on Twitter and so on and so forth. They're bigger on Facebook. I don't do anything on Facebook. I hate Facebook. If you send me a message on Facebook, I don't get it. Just letting you know. CatholicVote.org. Follow them if you want to donate to their cause and try to get this thing moving and get Catholics out of the pews and into the voting stations. CatholicVote.org/give is where you guys can go do that. We'll cut back over here, but that is a powerful move. Like, if they want to kill your progeny, they hate you. I agree with that. I don't see any way to debunk that.
He's a great messenger. I met him a few months ago. He actually has a suspendable lapel. I gave it to him. And that is a bro. That's like a physical guy too. I would not want to have to engage with him. But we talked about this on the AMRAD podcast, Garrett and I, yesterday, about how we use the phrase funding your own demise. And it's typically a reference to you're giving the government money and they're becoming more and more tyrannical with it and they're infringing on your liberties. But can you think of anything more of a funding your own demise than the fact that we're giving like $2 billion to Planned Parenthood to not only murder babies, but also be the second leading organization as it comes to hormones for transgender movement? Like, they're actually murdering the babies and then murdering the ability of young people to have babies.
Yeah, it's an anti-human move. I mean, there's no other way around it. You're sterilizing children, which is why they have to come for your kids, right? I mean, that's the whole point, people. When I did a video for Edify, which is a division of Catholic Vote, they did a whole thing where we talked about the government as a god and leftism as a progressive religion. It's a religion of converts. It has to be, because they don't want to have people grown up. They don't want to have families, and families are the thing that bring forth children. That's why they have to go and push sort of like alternative versions of that, whether it be surrogacy or IVF and so on. And I get it. Not everybody's on the same page there. But what I'm saying is those are overwhelmingly abused by people who are not interested in having a traditional family. They want to have an a-traditional family, and they want to raise more loonies, and then they want to do bad things to kids.
And the other element to having a traditional family is that there are downstream consequences that if you are a parent and married in a happy household, like the nuclear family traditionally, you are more likely to be engaged in your local community, in what goes on at the school board or at the town council. And I can't help but think that it is on purpose that they are encouraging these alternative sorts of lifestyles, because they know the downstream consequences are, well, then you're not going to be engaged in that. And then the tyranny can just grow into the local communities as well as not just from the federal.
I listened to a really interesting interview that Jordan Peterson did. And Peterson is good, like a lot of psychologists and mental health professionals, in asking a question and then just sitting back and letting the person run. And so he had this woman on, and I listened to it in double speed, and she's British, and I don't actually remember her name, so I'm kind of ashamed of that one. But my wife had sent it along. And she made the argument in a book that transhumanism, the era of transhumanism, began with the birth control pill, that it was really the first serious medical intervention that was not aimed at a health problem, but at like optimizing some sort of human experience. And it was trying to optimize the change that happened in the Industrial Revolution. And so the change is that the fundamental unit of production moved from the family and the household, which is what happened pre-industrial revolution, to the individual, which was the movement. This is the industrial movement, is that an individual goes and becomes a unit of productivity in a factory. And that's a fundamentally radical shift. And that's only something we've had like 150 years, looking at the thousands of years of human history. Big change. I do tend to agree with that. And it did shift the way that things are done. And so these transhumanized ideas, they all are outgrowths of the hormonal birth control pill. And it's an interesting argument. It's interesting to explore those in your mind and think, man, have they really been screwing us up? And forget about the way that women are attracted to different types of men when they're on these things and others. It's just one of those things that downstream consequences are never evaluated when you have these like simple, it's like, brilliant, let's take a COVID shot. And then like, oh, now you're infertile. Now you can't have babies. And that has happened to a lot of people. People take these jumps and these leaps in technology and they don't actually look at the consequences. It's Jurassic Park.
We're not opposed to modernity, but we are opposed to only first order thinking.
No, I am. I'm opposed to modernity.
You're all about that trad life, right? Dude, you want to go be a Mennonite?
I have a picture from the other day in my kitchen, which you guys saw. And we are hanging and draining yogurt that my wife made on the stove. So you have to drain the liquid out of it to get it to congeal into like more of like a Greek yogurt style. So it's hanging from this modified thing that I found, which is actually a child's loom for like weaving little textiles so they can learn how to do that. She's rolling out tortillas that she made. So she's hand making tortillas, and the oven has a sourdough bread that she's made in there. And so we're like baking bread and making our own yogurt. Like we're slowly getting completely radical. If I could get away with it, I would have ducks and chickens and maybe a couple of goats in my backyard. But I'm fairly confident my neighbors would not like that. I'm also confident I don't really care that much, but I don't need to have that kind of heat on me before we move. I don't want to move the animals from here to Montana.
Can I weave this in here?
Please.
Because earlier this week, I sent you the Grok story of how Real Steve Friend met Kyle Sarapin. And
Hold on, time out.
Zach Morris.
If you guys want to go read the Grok story of how Steve Friend and Kyle Sarapin met, go to our locals channel. I posted it there under the Content Plus section. You go to kylesarapin.com, Make sure you like the video here or there, or wherever you watch it. But the locals community actually has the story that Steve Friend is referencing, and it's quite long, and it's very funny. Steve Friend, back to you.
But I was thinking about how we could create our own story of when maybe Garrett O'Boyle, Kyle Sarapin, and Steve Friend were in school together. And the question then comes from the teacher, and the teacher says, why in an emergency do we evacuate women and children first? And Steve Friend, being the good senator and the teacher's pet, says, because women and children are most vulnerable. She goes, very good, Steve. And then Garrett says, because the Bible teaches us that we have to defend and protect the women because they're our future. And the teacher says, very good, Garrett. And then she
I know where this is going.
Looks over at Kyle, who's the troublemaker, and he goes, so the men can think of a solution in silence.
I was going to say because the women are weaker and they can't fight as well, but it's the same idea. My buddy and I got into one of these things where before I think I was either just married or before I got married, but we were days away from getting married, and it was really hot outside. We were living down in near downtown in Austin, Texas. So we were walking distance to like 6th Street. And so my buddy who introduced my wife and I, he's my lifelong friend, Carl, who always goes by Carlos and calls me Kylos, even though it doesn't make any sense. He's not Hispanic.
Star Wars name?
Dude, he has like red hair and brown eyes. Like he's Germanic. So the two of us we're all walking, and my wife is like tiny and she's wearing flats because she wears like regular tennis shoes. She never wears heels. And we're all cruising around, and we were having this conversation about zombies. Like that was a big thing, like 2008 to like 2013, 2014. Just before, everybody was talking zombie prep. In fact, my truck actually had the word zombie outbreak response vehicle on the back of it. We had like stickers. It was a whole thing. So as I'm going, I'm cruising down the street, and my wife says, oh my God, look at these women. And there's all these beautiful women in Austin, Texas. They always have been. And they're all wearing like stupid high heels, and they're going out dressed to the nines and doing the thing that women do when they're young and they're trying to meet a mate. And she was like, none of these people would survive during the zombie apocalypse. And Carl's like, oh yeah, dude, I could totally outrun all of them. And she was like, because those stupid heels, right? And he's like, no, because they're girls. And then, she got punched. He got punched in the gut for that because that's kind of how the way we roll. But it's right. Like that is correct. Yes, we do want to be able to figure out a solution. But also, women, you're just not as good at fighting. You're also not very good at breakdancing. Can I do one breakdancing thing? People wanted the ray gun. This is Australian breakdancer. I didn't know breakdancing was a topic in the Olympics, but let's just have a little segue here. If you go to your hotel room and you're like, I've got a couple hours to kill before the conference, before the meeting, before the sales pitch, before whatever it is that you're going to do, the interview. Maybe you just want to train for the 2028 Olympics, and you can do it just like this guy did. You'll notice that there is a piece of luggage sitting here. I don't know why I'm playing some palate cleanser stuff in the middle, but let's just do it. That was retarded. I saw that in the Olympics and I thought it was a joke. This person is ridiculous. And she has a PhD in breakdancing or something.
Will Ferrell is kicking himself that he wasted his Olympics movie on ice skating.
That's
he could have been doing breakdancing.
He could still do it. It turns out. Yeah. What would you call it? Breaking sort of bad. I don't know. There's it was Blades of Glory. It's so doofusy to see this stuff. And let's do more doofusy stuff, shall we?
Oh, it's a Friday. Send it.
It's Friday. We got more stuff. Actually, let me say this is a little sponsor read for our friends at Patriot Coolers. They are a serious company. They make a seriously good product. Everybody who buys one reaches out and says, thanks for turning me on to them, Kyle, including their big hard coolers, the soft coolers, and these tumblers. This is the one that I carry right now. It's full of water. I use it because it's 1,000 degrees outside. PatriotCoolers.com, Patriot Coolers with an S on the end of it.com. Promo code KYLE. Save yourself 10%. Let them know that we sent you. Kyle is the promo code. It's in the show description. PatriotCoolers.com. And they also give money to vets that need help with mobility, which is pretty cool. They're a great company. And we're going to go directly into Kamala Harris letting us know about things. I don't know. I wrote Kamala Harris, Strength of Democracy, parentheses, retarded on this one, Steve. Here we go.
Because when we think about the strength of our democracy, I think that there's a duality to the nature of democracy. When it's intact, it's so strong in terms of what it does to uphold and protect individual rights and freedoms. So strong in its nature. And it's very fragile. It will only be as strong as our willingness to fight for it.
Hammered.
Couple things.
Go ahead.
The Secret Service agent in the background even kind of broke there. He cocked his head to the side like a confused Cocker Spaniel as he was listening to that. Mm-hmm. And then Kamala Harris has the hand motion thing going down. She's not even Italian. The more drunk she is, the more she uses those. I mean, and Trump uses his hands, but he basically just goes forward and to the side, forward and to the side. It's
he's basically saying the size of things and then I know.
How high, how wide, how high, how wide. That's his. He's trying to do shelving, right? That's the way that Donald Trump speaks. But when Kamala Harris is trying to gauge the size of the pumpkin that she wants to carve this Halloween, and she can't quite decide, that's what.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's the ball dance. So one of the things that my buddy and I used to joke about was how ridiculous people speak, and they say things that don't make any sense, and they're obviously fake. Same guy that introduced me to my wife. And I remember when we were in college, we were going somewhere and we had this thing back and forth. We would do this every once in a while where when somebody asked us about something we didn't want to talk about, he would have the same canned response. So we would throw it back and forth and it would go like this. Everyone who tries it says, "Oh, that is so nice." It's exactly what Kamala Harris just sounded like. She was like, when they see our democracy, oh, it is so strong. And also, tell me she doesn't sound like she's trying to do this. I think this is from 30 Rock, but I caught this clip and it's like the vibes are the same.
The future and America. Now, I may have lost my train of thought several minutes ago, but if I continue to talk like this, no one will notice, and when I stop, you will applaud my energy. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes.
I think that's on par. It almost also sounds like one of those chants they do at a 28 days clinic where they're like, it works. If you work it, so work it. No further
repeat the word over and over. It's really bad. This is why, by the way, she can't go out there and do a press conference, I think.
I mean, she does have a very sympathetic media. I think that they would give her some very massaging questions. The question to you is, when ultimately it comes down to it, and she's like, all right, fine, I'm going to do the interview. Isn't anyone other than George Stephanopoulos going to get that?
No, for sure. I want Jim Acosta to do it right now. I don't know why, but I'm having this feeling. Let me play this clip for you. It's long, folks. It's like 2.5 minutes or almost 2.5 minutes. I'm just going to tell you at the end, it's actually worth it because he's like a dog with a bone. He's bored and he didn't get paid. Like his paycheck is late. So he's like, whatever the Kamala Harris payoff is not coming in. So I'm going to go just a little harder than normal. Watch this.
Would it kill you guys to have a press conference? Why hasn't she had a press conference?
Listen, the Vice President and Governor Walz have been busy crisscrossing this country since the launch of this campaign and adding Governor Walz to the ticket. You saw the ways in which they went across the battleground states last week, generating rallies of thousands, 10,000 here, 15,000 there. But
Michael, you know, a campaign rally is not a press conference. Do you mind if I cut in? I mean, you know, a campaign rally is not a press conference. Why hasn't she had a press conference? She's the vice president. She can handle the questions. Why not do it?
We absolutely are going to do it. You hear her take questions as she's out on the stump. And she said last week, we're going to be having a sit-down interview here before the end of the month. What she's going to be focused on and what this campaign is going to be focused on is communicating directly with the voters that are actually going to decide the pathway to 270 electoral votes. That's why she
Can you commit to a press conference this week?
This past week. That's why we're doing a bus tour in Pennsylvania as we head into Chicago. And it's why we'll sit down for an interview before the end of the month to make sure that we can have a deep dive conversation about the vision that Kamala Harris has for where she wants to take this country and the contrast that we're going to have with Donald Trump. We're going to have plenty of opportunities to do that throughout the rest of
but one interview by the end of the month.
This month and throughout the rest of the campaign.
I don't want to, belabor this, but one interview before the end of the month. I mean, that's not a lot. I mean, can you commit to a press conference before the end of the month?
We will commit to directly engage with the voters that are actually going to decide this election. And that is going to be complete with rallies, with sit-down interviews, with press conferences, with all the digital assets that we have at our disposal.
Jim. Look at him go, dude. He's just crushing it. He's like, hey, dude, seriously? The digital assets that you have, the fake paid-off TikTok influencers, give me a break. It's awesome. He just stays on that thing. He's like in the pocket and he's not going to leave.
And the surrogate caught whatever that is the laughing disease that Kamala has to a certain extent there. Every time he was asked, he would just kind of chuckle because he was so uncomfortable. As much as he had his canned answers and he stuck to it. But good on Jim Acosta. I mean, I guess a blind squirrel finds an acorn every now and then.
I think he was bored. Did you see the smirk? He's just like, bro,
I got one.
I asked you a question and you can't come back to it. If you guys are joining us in the chat, if you're on YouTube, and we're getting some actual traction there for once. We got a couple people watching, so thanks so much. I see you guys out there in the chat. If you're watching us on Rumble, make sure you guys have hit the like button. Make sure that you are sharing this thing if you guys are having fun with it. We always have a little bit of fun on Fridays. We're a little bit less serious because it's been a long week. These weeks continue to get longer and weirder and stupider. Here's why I think this is garbage. There's Chris Hayes saying that the Harris performance may be more, these are the polls performance, maybe more than a honeymoon. I don't believe it. I read that this is coming from MSNBC, read the article. It's not a convincing thing, but you will hear people on the left trying to astroturf this game. Let me show you what a real press conference looks like. Can we play a press conference clip for you? Steve, you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready for it.
Okay, this is longer. Would it kill you to have a press conference? Here's Donald Trump. I got to look at this. He's talking about God saving his life. Now, he does it in Trump fashion, so this meanders a little bit, but those of you who listen to the show probably don't mind listening to Donald Trump go for a little while. He goes out there for like 90 minutes, 2 hours, whatever. He tells the longest route to this story, but the message I think is pretty good, and it's how you know he's not a coward. He goes out there and takes whatever question it is, and he doesn't know what's coming. Here we go.
Thank you, President Trump. You've spoken very passionately about how God saved your life, and I'm wondering, have you put much thought into why God saved your life, as in for what purpose has he been shielding and protecting you?
So, I don't know if you heard the question. You've spoken about God saving your life, that I've spoken passionately about it, and something happened because that was a miracle. I never looked that way. The audience was massive and it was in front of me. I never have that particular graph. That was a graph on, as you all know now, that it's very, I think everyone knows it very well, but it showed the great numbers on illegal immigration. It was the lowest point we've ever had. and it was one that I use less than 20% of the time. It's always at the end of the speech, not at the beginning of the speech, and it's always on the left side, not the right side. And yet, for some reason, I called it. It's not on a teleprompter. I do things largely without a teleprompter, frankly, because it's hard to hold an audience if you're going to go for an hour and a half or 2 hours reading a script. And I just talked about it, and I moved to my right, turned sharply to my right, ping. And if I didn't do that, I'm not here with you. So, yeah, God has something to do with it. It's a miracle, and God had something to do with it. And maybe it's we want to save the world. This world is going down. This world is going down. So it could be. But I believe that. I believe that. My sons are very good shooters. They're like scratch golfers, better, relatively speaking, with shooters, great shooters. And Eric and Don both told me from 130 yards. I said, well, that's pretty far away, isn't it? They said, no, that's like a 1-foot putt with, weapons like the one being used. Plus, he was a good shooter. This guy was a good shooter. He went to the range and shot a lot, and he was supposed to be a pretty good shooter. They said a bad shooter would hit the target almost 100% of the time. So something happened. And I have to say the Secret Service sniper did an amazing job. He had 5 seconds to find the target and hit the target. And
all right, so he goes on to talk about how they piled on him and kept him safe, and he's doing the things he's got to do. He's talking about the great job because nobody wants to be ungrateful for the people that piled on. But he saved his own life. I've actually heard Dan Bongino say this as well. Those bumpers that were up on the stage, they're all armored, and so he dropped behind them, and that saved him. And the shooter goes cyclic and starts pulling some triggers. And then we find out this story. This is coming from Newsweek. Have you read this?
I have, and it's Folks, good eating.
Here's the headline: Secret Service investigating report that agent left Trump event to breastfeed. Because when you're on the job and you're a nursing mom and you're protecting the maybe future president, but certainly one of the biggest candidates who's already had an assassination attempt within the last 40 days, why not? Just step away and go ahead and bring some uncleared people in and bring in an infant. And why are you a nursing mom? Who, by the way, nursing moms, that means you're postpartum. I don't know how far postpartum, but even 1 year postpartum, my wife is not physically as strong or fast because she's not sleeping, because she's dealing with a flippin' infant. Why are you a Secret Service agent protecting a guy who just got shot at? You got some taste on that? I'll try and find some choice quotes too.
Well, I mean, the background for the story is the on-site supervisor was doing final rounds and looking through, making sure everything was covered. And this agent was not standing opposed. Instead, she'd gone into some room that was intended for serious meetings or serious issues that they would have to bring Trump in there if there was another attack. She was using it to breastfeed. She had several members of her family behind secure areas, even though they were not cleared. And my takeaway from that is, and we could go off about the 30 by 30 initiative and the postpartum element to this. Is she the most capable? But I think the biggest thing to me is the fact that these failures are now being spotlighted. It's not because there's a trend that's new that's happening at the Secret Service. These failures have been going on for a really long time. It's just that now they've gotten the attention, and the myth of competence has finally been exposed, which means that there is a higher threat level against any protectee who the Secret Service has responsibility for.
We already know that the ATF basically is people who enjoy, I can't say that on here. That's not appropriate. But I was going to make some dirty sexual references to the things that they enjoy doing. The ATF is horrific. We already knew that. The DEA is willing to pay the same people that are giving information to the FBI and the ATF. So they're going to get paid 3 times for the same amount of information. And then it's going to go and circle report itself. So we know the DOJ is full of garbage. This is over at DHS. Secret Service is now being exposed. The myth of competency, as you said. We're talking about people who have one mission, and they probably haven't been good at it for quite a while. In D.C., their game is pretty buttoned up. But apparently, whenever they're the away team, they suck. And so here's the story. This is reported on by Real Clear Politics correspondent Susan Crabtree. We'll give her credit. She's the one who broke the story. Says that a Secret Service agent abandoned her post to breastfeed with no permission or warning to the event site agent, whoever the lead was for that particular site. Quote, the site agent went to do one final sweep, as you mentioned, of the walking route and found an agent breastfeeding her child in a room that was supposed to be set aside for important Secret Service official work, i.e. potential emergencies related to the president, or in this case, obviously the former president, the candidate, the protectee. They noted that you're not allowed to bring your children to a protective assignment. which makes perfect sense to me. I cannot think of a time. The only time I ever brought somebody from my quote unquote family with me while I was doing work was I brought my dog as a cover to go on a walking trail as we were going to go do some surveillance at the back of somebody's house, and they backed up to like a park and a trail. So I brought my dog with me to work when it made sense for like a cover story, but I was in a low visibility surveillance role. I wasn't in a uniformed, suited protective role. I cannot fathom it. And like, she's breastfeeding. What the hell is she doing this job?
Breastfeeding is a reasonable accommodation in some work atmospheres. Like, there are women who work professionally, and it's not unreasonable to say, hey, can you cordon off this area here? So if I need to go pump or I need to go breastfeed, that's a consideration from the employer standpoint. There's laws that go into that, but it is not reasonable if your job is executive protection of a candidate for the presidency for you to have that accommodation to just leave your post and then go breastfeed an infant. And then also, in order to get access to your infant, permit people who have not been cleared to come into a secure area. Like, these are tremendous violations that go on there. And the question then is, what are going to be the consequences of this? Is this woman going to be fired? Are they going to own that we fired a breastfeeding Secret Service agent? Not a chance in the world. She's going to get paid out worse than Peter Strzok and Lisa Page.
I agree. And it's awful. It's truly awful. Let me do another little story that's a little closer to home for us, a little personal story. Actually, let me do a quick plug for my buddies over at Shield Arms. We're talking about guns. We're talking about people that carry a gun for a living. You should carry your own guns for a living. You should definitely check out my buddies over at shieldarms.com. If you guys just want to go peruse their sites and put something on your dream list for when the economy is better, do that. They make a folding stock. They make fixed as well, but their ARs are already decked out. If you guys are looking for a 9mm, if you're looking for a 5.56, they are designed by shooters for shooters. I'm only saying, like, I don't even know what they pay me. Like, I don't know if they do pay me. I got a check from them the other day and I didn't expect it. I would promote them anyway. They've given me a number of their products, but I would have paid full price, and I paid full price for some of their stuff. Awesome people, shooters that love shooters, out of Montana, America, and they do a 5% discount using our name, KYLE. So that's going to be in the show links as well if you want to click through them, especially if you carry a micro Glock, a 43 or a 43X, or if you carry a 48 like Steve does. Check out our friends over at Shield Arms. I got to get Steve, I'm going to get you like a package of stuff sent over, I think. That seems like the right thing to do, right? You carry an extra heavier magazine.
Oh, if it's going to be like magazine gear, that's fine. You just keep sending me like tech. Now, which I will say, I have less glitter in my ears, but they do a good job. Kyle sent me these and I got pressured into putting them on finally today. Upgrade.
I had to shame Steve into opening up the nice earbuds that I sent him. And he was like, they're the same as the other ones. He's like, oh, they have a case and everything. I'm like, those are pro, dude. Just step up. It's a friendly Friday gift to my man, Steve Friend, who's always showing up here on a Friday and breaking it down with me. So there you go. There's a little, we're upgrading your technology slowly. That actually says a lot about the way the Bureau works. Because Garrett and I always laugh on the background. You don't know this, but we have a small laugh at your expense that you're more FBI, like what the real FBI was like than we are in some ways. Like, you're clean shaven. You tend not to go out and spend your money on things that, like, I will, which is like, I'll go out and drop $800 on a suppressor for no reason because my friend who owns a gun store is like, oh, you should buy this. And I'm like, all right, done. And like, that would not be a Steve Friend decision at all.
Guilty. We just put a
join
home
SWAT
gym in, and my wife ordered a barbell that I was not going to order.
Exactly. Like, you'd rather go to the gym, I imagine. I'd also imagine that if it was the choice of like, hey, Steve, do you want to try out for SWAT so you can get some cool stuff? Or would you just go buy it yourself? You'd be like, yeah, I'm going to go to SWAT and have them give it to me.
Sure. And then just, I'll keep your Viking belt off the books. Yeah, you can, as long as Uncle Sam's paying for it. I mean, I still use the $120 SOG pocket knife that they bought for me with end of the year funds.
They do buy some really dumb stuff. I had friends giving me like big knives and stuff that they had been given on end of year funds, and it's always like that. All right, so talking about the incompetency of the ex-girlfriend, here's a little taste. This you guys are seeing, it's going to be really hard for you to read. This is a notification from Apple of a subpoena that was granted before Garrett O'Boyle left his old job and went to the one that canceled him, all FBI jobs, for Garrett's wife, right? This is Garrett's wife's iMessage account getting subpoenaed because the FBI investigated his wife. And now they've left it, it's no longer under seal because they know that they got the wrong person. They still haven't given his job back. This is the evil shit that goes on in these agencies. Like, incompetence, yes, but also aggressively pursuing anybody who embarrasses them. You'd think that a breastfeeding mom is embarrassing. And like you said, they're not going to own it, but they are going to go after people like Garrett's, who, by the way, at that time was a nursing mom. She had like a 1 week old. It grosses me out at every level.
The worst thing you can do is embarrass these agencies, and not because you're of your own incompetence or negligence, but the processes that they are engaging in that are antithetical to what their actual stated mission is. That is the worst thing you can do, which is why they've come after Garrett so hard, you so hard, others like Marcus, who, as far as I know, still hasn't been paid out, even though he got a settlement.
Came after your wife?
Came after my wife, which to me, I mean, ultimately, that's the greatest thing that you could have had, which is why I will not hesitate a moment, if ever given the opportunity, to hand out 40,000 pink slips, including to people who I can still consider friends. Nope, you'll do just fine in the private sector.
That's true. I got a couple more little policy things, because the one thing that I keep seeing attacked is Donald Trump is interested in the tax cuts, basically renewing the ones from 2017, which were actually, I saw them, and I made less than $100,000 a year at the time, and I saw them on my paycheck making more money. It was 50 or 60 or 80 bucks a month, or, whatever pay period, but that all adds up. Whatever that number was, it was less than $2,000 a year, but it was less, it was like $2,000 a year. People always cry about it on the Democrat side, and this goes along with the serious talking points that I'd like to see people hone in on. They're trying to kill black babies. That's a video we played earlier. Like, on a more serious note, this graph I found, and I know this to be true, and I know you know this too, because do you guys know Steve Friend has a background in accounting? He doesn't like people to know this, but he's actually like a number. He's holding his hand over his face. Okay. High income taxpayers basically pay almost all of the taxes in this country. So whenever you hear about them, they're like, they're giving money to the top 1%, the top 10%. They're saving money for the richest 50% of America. These are the actual numbers. Can you actually read those or no?
No, I don't have my spectacles on. Sorry.
And also Steve wears glasses. So there's that. The top 1% of taxpayers in the United States. This goes to 2021 taxes, but this is pretty clear and pretty much the same across the board every year. It's within a few points of this. About 26% of all federal taxes are paid by the top 1% of earners in this country. If you don't know that your taxes basically contribute almost nothing, you don't understand how the math works. Unless you're a really high earner, 1% of this country pays 26%. Another, the 1 to 5, so between like the top 5% of earners, add another 19%. So you are now at about 45% of all taxes are paid by the top 5% of earners. And when you go into the top 10%, which is what they always cry about, the top 10% adds another 14% on top of that. So now you're talking about 60% of all taxes are paid by people who make the top 10% of incomes. And then the last thing to know is that the bottom 50% of earners in this country, the people who are really getting hurt by Democrat policies, they contribute 3.3%. So whenever I hear these a-holes talking about these rich people need to pay their fair share, poor people in this country pay almost none of it. They're a rounding error when it comes down to how much we make in taxes. Bottom 50% pays 3.3 in taxes, and the tax burden is still crappy. So you just can't get rid of enough taxes to make a difference to people that are not making any money because they don't pay that much.
And you're also failing to mention the refundable tax credits that people get. So people actually pay a net negative in taxes. They file their tax return and they didn't earn enough income to actually have to pay, but they get a refund anyway because there are these credits that are established. That's a form of welfare that are doing this. So by filing your taxes, you actually make money if you're in the lower percentiles.
It would be far more fair, if they want to talk about fairness, if everybody paid a flat tax, which is what my wife actually ended up converting herself to being a more right-wing person. She's like, why doesn't everyone just pay like the same percentage? And I'm like, oh, a flat tax. You're far right now. Like now you're Steve Forbes from like the late 90s, which is awesome. That's a great position to be in. It's obviously fair.
Starts wearing Ron Paul t-shirts around the house barefoot.
It's possible. Yeah. Well, she's barefoot anyway, and she's baking breads. Let it be known that most of us fit between like that 50, the top 50% of earners and like the 20, 50 and 25%. So if you are in, better than half the country, but you are not in the top 25% of earners, you contribute 7.2%, give or take. You're doing less than 10% of the total tax burden in this country because most of it is borne by people who earn the top 10%. Anyway, whenever I hear these things, it makes me go, guys, you don't know anything about numbers. As our chat appropriately said, communists don't understand economics. That's true. And the last little thing I'll have about that, because it actually is, It's not related, but it's close enough to a Steve Friend story that we might as well talk about it. I've got to think about Disneyland here, and I wanted to touch this. Disneyland, I pulled Steve off the screen for a sec just so we can read this, has a price problem. Oh, like everybody else has a price problem because things are too expensive. I pulled this little piece out to talk about how inflation works. And I want you guys to recognize, in 1955, when Disneyland opened, you could buy admission for 10 rides for $2.50, which is the equivalent of about $29 today. I'm rounding all the numbers for ease, okay? In 1977, when they opened up Disney World, you could buy a book of tickets for 7 rides, and that was $8. And you're probably not going to get more than 7 rides in a whole day anyway because of how long the lines are. That's about $61, $62 in today's dollars. So you're talking about when these things opened, about less than $30 would get you a whole day pass. Same story, Disney World 1977, about $62 in today's dollars. But those actual one-day tickets right now are $104 to $116. They're at least 2x, maybe 4, 5, 6x what they would have been in those times if we had just kept the prices. Everything keeps accelerating. That's what inflation does. And we're talking about those are inflation adjusted. So they're taking more and more money because they're putting more and more rides up, I guess. But Disneyland forgets that the real problem is that they've gone all in on woke and tranny and stupid stuff. So they've also lost families. Now they got to go after like these dinks that are trying to do, like they're going after the dual income, no kids.
Dual income, no kids?
Yeah, that's who's got to go after it.
Norma Tink.
The Tinks. Anyhow, you're right next to Disneyland. Do you ever go to Disney World, rather? You're next to them in Florida?
Nope, never will go either. We boycott Disney because of the ideological behind it. And then also the expense of it is just inordinate. And I mean, you talk about the raising prices. That's disposable income. That's not even necessities that people are seeing. I saw this chart that said, well, the government's reporting 25% increase in the last 4 years on groceries, but the grocery stores say it's actually 35%. They're just pulling out the core things like coffee and meat. But no, in Florida here, we have lots of other forms of recreation, and my kids are still young enough that even going to Disney, they wouldn't be able to do everything. But our favorite park is Gatorland, which is older than Disney, and they have 3,500 alligators. And we just go there and watch them like basically do SeaWorld with gators, or they jump out of the water and eat raw chicken. It's pretty awesome.
And also you can feed them the favorite meat. You can feed them the favorite meat of Mitt Romney.
I mean, I'm still waiting to see if I can get a Mitt Romney sighting at Gatorland because they do enjoy the same type of meat as the good senator from Utah.
If you guys did not pay attention, what was it? Probably like sometime last year, one of our earlier Friendly Fridays, we had a video of Mitt Romney walking down the hall holding a hot dog that he's never going to eat and going, "It's National Hot Dog Day." And some people don't know this, but hot dog is my favorite meats.
Do you think that hot dog was raw? Like they'd pushed it out the same way that Chuck Schumer had like the non-melting cheese on the fake hamburger patties on the grill?
Because the grill wasn't actually on, because otherwise he would have been sweating profusely and he would have gone through that white shirt. I think so. Yeah, I think it was. I think it was a fake hot dog. I think we could probably go back and find that out. Let's wrap this sucker up for the day. Why don't you tell people what they got for AMRAD coming up tomorrow? Let people know about your new thing that you're doing in the mornings before we get going, and then we'll do the palate cleanse and we'll do a review. I'll give you the floor.
Oh, thank you very much. I am continuing to do content creation fantasy camp. So in the mornings on X right now currently, and we are going to be streaming it on Rumble as well, called The Morning Post with Jason and friend Jason Nelson, who's another host at Patriot.tv, where I'm at as well, 2:00 Eastern. There is my program. And then the American Radicals podcast is on Rumble, rumble.com/AmRadPod. Tomorrow, noontime, Garrett and I are going to be talking about the Ministry of Justice, which is his favorite term for the DOJ and the two-tiered system of justice. Examples are going to be digging into those. It'll be a good time. Saturday is always our best episodes because we can take our time, go a little bit long. We don't have the 59-minute rule that applies on Tuesdays and Thursdays, so we can raid the group into this show.
What about live streaming a body cam of you just jogging every morning to motivate people who don't want to jog, but they think they should participate?
I would be for that, except it's dark, so it's just homeless people, fishermen, and Steve Friend. So I don't know what the visuals would look like, but we could have audio. It would just be me like breathing heavy for an hour and a half. I mean, if folks want that, I can.
There are people that want that. There are definitely people that want that. I don't know who those people are. Really weird, really gross. But they're out there 100%. All right. So check out AMRAD Pod. Check out the Morning Post. Is that what it's called?
Morning Post. You can see it. It's streaming on my Twitter profile, X profile, at Real Steve Friend.
I'll get useful, and I'll retweet that at some point. So people who are listening to this, especially those of you who are over on X, which we can show them right now. If you guys are over on X, I will make sure that I put that out maybe on Mondays, so we can get some folks that want to see it. If you guys are looking for more of Steve's hot takes, you're a little bit more buttoned up when you're not with me. Would you agree? Like, you let your hair down here.
Oh, for sure. Friendly Friday, you get the loose Steve friend. I think the Morning Post, we sort of compared it to Pardon the Interruption, which you're not a sports balls guy, but anyone who is, Jason's the Tony Kornheiser, and I'm the Michael Wilbon, the more straight-laced guy who has the tie already all the way done. And Kornheiser is like, kind of letting it flow out there like Travolta in some 70s movie.
The flow is also known as chest salad, according to my friends that were like legit baseball players, for whatever it is. Okay.
I could have gone the rest of my life without having known that. Appreciate
salad.
That.
He's like, that's some nice salad you got going there when you got the chest hair. All right, we're gonna make fun of Ray Gun again. The silliest situation where we're at. I'm gonna play the breakdance in the hotel one more time. We're gonna do a 5-star review, and then we're gonna go back and we're gonna close with one of my favorite songs of all time, which you don't know this about me, Steve, but the theme song to Beverly Hills Cop was written by Harold Faltermeyer. And it's a synthesizer piece known as Axel Foley, which is the name of the character played by Eddie Murphy. And it's probably the first rated R movie that I ever saw, but it's definitely the first rated R movie that I owned. And I don't know why my parents let me have that, but I was very young and I had a copy of it in a VHS that used to hang out when I had like a 13-inch square TV in my room as like before I was a teenager. I'm fairly confident being a parent right now that they just had extra crap and they put it in my room. It was like a tape deck, and there was like some kind of like knobs and dials for like a hi-fi system. And then I had this like VHS, and I had the TV, and they were all separate units, and they were all stacked up in an entertainment center where I had that song on repeat on VHS to be able to listen to it if I ever wanted to, because I didn't have a tape of it. All right, so we're going to go that way. That was a really long setup for what it's doing. Enjoy some retarded breakdancing from Aussies pretending to be French in Paris at the games that are terrible. Refreshing content, says TX79707. I think that's a Texas zip code, if I had to guess. 5 stars. Reminds me of Bongino back in the Renegade Republican days. Relevant, focused content on the topic or topics of the day. Highly recommend. Thanks so much for your 5-star review. Today is a little bit less focused, a little bit less relevant, but still I hope you had a good time with it. Thanks to my guest, Steve Friend, for joining me on this program. And here is your palate cleanser going into the weekend. Axel Foley, retarded breakdancing. Prepare yourselves. The Olympics of 2028 is calling all of your names. I don't know why Steve disappeared on it. It was too much for him. All right, folks, thanks so much for joining us today. I do appreciate all of you being in the live audience. Thank you for sharing the program. Thank you for liking it if you are there and watching. Thanks for dropping the comments. I'm seeing some of them on YouTube, so I'm going to go and start looking at that. Yes, that was an actual Olympic performance. It's why none of you watched the Olympics this year and why none of it mattered, because apparently we just are a totally unserious, not just country, but an unserious world. Remember that there are actually serious issues out there, and we can focus on them, and we will again on Monday. I kind of like the idea that we had a long chat about Donald Trump knowing that God has a purpose for him. As you guys said in the chat, there are imperfect people that help perfect God's plan. So that's the kind of place where I'm sitting as we go into this hot weekend. If you guys are safe, get yourselves off social media, love your kids, do those kind of fun things. I'm going to do the same. So I won't be seeing much of you on the Twitters or the True Socials or any of the other things. And if you're listening to us on the weekend, you'll catch us again at 0930 Eastern Time on rumble.com/Kyle Sarapin, on locals at KyleSarapin.com or at Kyle Sarapin on the various social media platforms. God bless you all. We'll see you then.
Thanks for listening to The Kyle Sarapin Show, streamed live weekdays on rumble.com/Kyle Sarapin. Follow Kyle on Twitter, Truth Social, and Instagram @Kyle Sarapin.